Andrew Lloyd Webber composed Love Never Dies, the sequel to his blockbuster hit The Phantom of the Opera, with almost no spoken dialogue. It is sung throughout. Does that make it an opera rather than a musical? With Stephen Sondheim's musicals showing up regularly on the stages of opera companies, does that make them operas? Or is it the venue that matters, a Broadway theater or an opera house, or the producing company? When the Repertory Theater stages Sweeney Todd at the Loretto Hilton, is it a musical? And when Opera Theater St. Louis stages Sweeney Todd at the Loretto Hilton, is it an opera? My own somewhat whimsical theory claims that the audience decides. If the audience is talking during the overture, it's a musical. If they quietly listen to the music, it's an opera. Or does it matter what you call it, a rose by any other name? The gossiping audience at the Fox for Love Never Dies declared it a musical, though director Simon Phillips, like many other directors of musicals lately, determined to shut the audience up as quickly as possible by having some action on stage during the overture, which does work, as the audience proved during the second act overture, with no stage action and lots of talking. Unfortunately, what Phillips and book writer Ben Elton put on stage was the Phantom sitting at his organ, composing something, sometimes playing, sometimes writing. Watching an artist perform the mostly brain work of creating a new piece is rarely very dramatic. Then we go to Phantasma, the Coney Island amusement park the Phantom created in New York after his mysterious disappearance from the Paris Opera. It's a spectacular layout, lots of electric lights and erector set rides and performers from the shows at Phantasma, dancers and acrobats and freaks. The performers perform. So far, we've seen a composer composing and performers performing, but nothing dramatic, no story unfolding. We could be at a circus. When the story finally does start unfolding, it turns out to be a barely credible 19th century melodrama of the kind that gave melodrama a bad name. The Phantom still longs for Christine Daae, the young soprano he taught to sing, and whom his overwhelming desire for her made him treat her very badly, kidnapping her, holding her prisoner in his underground lair beneath the Paris Opera, threatening to kill her fiancé Raoul, Comte de Chagny, and maybe her too. Now, 10 years later, the Phantom is the wealthy, mysterious, masked impresario of Coney Island's Phantasma. Christine is a celebrated singer, married to Raoul with a young son. But Raoul has gambled away his fortune and turned into an alcoholic. To pay their debts, Christine has agreed with the producer Oscar Hammerstein I to give a concert in his theater. When the Phantom learns that Christine is in New York, he offers her twice as much to sing for him. As he again woos her, we learn that maybe she wasn't held captive in his lair, that she partly returned his love, though we saw no evidence of that in the original musical. Perhaps Lloyd Webber and his fellow creators of Love Never Dies counted on some in the audience having some pity for the deformed fellow, though he certainly had enough of it for himself. And they could build on that pity to make the Phantom, formerly the villain, now the romantic hero, and the former romantic hero, Raoul, now not so much a villain as just a sad failure. What I am about to say could be a spoiler, though if you've seen Love Never Dies, you already know, and I can't really encourage you to see it if you haven't. I'll simply say that on the side of the opera designation for Love Never Dies, Christine ends like the heroines of many operas, especially those who have violated the bounds of Victorian morality. And the way it happens is even more unmotivated and superficial than that sudden quarantine that stops Friar Lawrence's messenger from reaching Romeo in Romeo and Juliet. Lloyd Webber's music for Love Never Dies has little of his usual gift for melody. No earworms here, though a friend whose opinion I respect said he thinks the title song, not heard until near the end, is one of Lloyd Webber's better efforts. This is one of those shows where you may leave humming Gabriela Tilisova's sets and costumes, the garish Coney Island spectacle, and the exuberant twists and twirls of the Art Nouveau set pieces for the interiors. The Phantom of the Opera is the longest-running show in Broadway history. Its sequel, Love Never Dies, has yet to make it to Broadway.
Well, I was unable to see this one, but I guess I would like to hear a little of that music.
Okay.